to where customers use it. And we're also going to need significant investments in energy efficiency technologies to reduce demand. That will also be an important part of this. The reality is that the prices we're paying now are sufficient to pay for infrastructure built in the past, but that's past history. We need prices that are sufficient to pay for infrastructure in the 21st century. And as Representative Geis said, the cost of commodities such as steel, aluminum, copper, all of those things needed to build roads. Some of them are needed to build roads, but a lot of them are needed to build electricity infrastructure. All those prices are going up, and we need retail prices that are going to support the type of investment that we need. I want to close with by recognizing a study, an international study, done by the International Energy Agency, which is put together and sponsored by 27 different countries. They wrote a paper called Tackling Investment Challenges in Power Generation. And they took, of course, the broadest possible perspective. They looked over the entire world at countries. Some of them are very regulated, some of them are moving towards markets. And they asked the question, how can we get the kind of investment we need in power generation? And I'm going to have a brief quote here. Here's what they said. Electricity markets deliver considerable benefits if implemented wholeheartedly and if backed by ongoing government commitment. Competitive markets with cost-reflective prices effectively balance economic efficiency, reliability, and environmental responsibility. I could not have said it better. I agree completely with that quote. And I hope that as we move through this energy debate in the legislature, we would ask the General Assembly to recognize that the caps have to be allowed to expire on schedule. And in addition to that, we would call on the General Assembly to reinforce the commitment to electricity markets, because that's the best way to rebuild electricity infrastructure in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Terry, thank you. The interesting thing about infrastructure in many respects is there's so many issues in this Capitol that'll fill these halls. They're sexy, passionate issues, but the infrastructure issues are the ones that when your power goes out at your house, it's the most important issue in your whole family, and you want it fixed as soon as possible. And when a bridge goes out and you have to take a detour for miles around, you want your government to fix that bridge as soon as possible. But we don't do things on the front end a lot of times for infrastructure. We react. And what we're trying to do with this infrastructure for Pennsylvania is to take this reaction and turn it into a positive, proactive force that gets infrastructure monies on the front end of these issues to build the foundation for our economy moving forward. We can't wait. Technology's changing so fast that we need these infrastructures in place as soon as possible, not to debate here for years, but to move quickly on these issues because time is of the essence. Another important infrastructure that hits a family right away is clean water. And we believe Pennsylvanians want the cleanest water in the country. And that's why today at 5 p.m. we're launching 1 million Pennsylvanians for clean water. We want Pennsylvanians to rally behind this $400 million bond referendum that's on the ballot on November 4th and sign up on a website, techquestpa.com. It's real simple. You click on the thing that says vote yes for clean water and you sign up and you become one of the 1 million Pennsylvanians for clean water. To give us an update on some other water issues and the 1 million Pennsylvanians for clean water, John Brocious from the Pennsylvania Municipal Authorities Association. John.
Good morning. Thank you, Kelly. Just like to recognize the efforts of the Tech Council to put infrastructure in such a prominent position this fall and going into next year, and the work that Kelly and his staff have done spearheading this. You've also heard them mention their initiative, 1 million for clean water. Actually, that's a little bit of a misnomer. 1 million votes for clean water would be unprecedented in Pennsylvania during an election. But there are over 12 million Pennsylvania citizens who need clean water every single day. When they turn on their faucet, that clean water comes out of the tap, And when they flush their toilet, that dirty water goes away and that they're assured that that is treated somewhere and released back into the environment in a pure state. So what we have, clean water provides several different things. Obviously, environmental protection and public safety and health, but it also involves community development and economic development. We would have very few viable communities that did not have a potable drinking water supply or safe sewage treatment. Likewise, we would not attract business and industry if we did not have those two assets readily available in communities. We have seen over the years the protection of the environment and public health has spurned any number of mandates, which have been good for all of us as citizens of Pennsylvania and America. However, they come with a very expensive price tag. And too often in the last 20 years, those price tags have not been accompanied by funding from the state or federal government. And so what we're looking at today is a $20 billion need for water and sewer infrastructure in Pennsylvania. That is an estimate from DEP and EPA. The Governor's Sustainable Infrastructure Task Force has looked at that number, looking ahead at some additional mandates and adding in operation and maintenance costs. That figure could be $36 billion in the next 10 to 15 year period. And what I'd like to say is the state of Pennsylvania, the legislature in particular and the governor have recognized that need and have put forward several pieces of legislation that passed to put infrastructure funding in front of the people. Senate Bill 2, introduced by Senator Earl and passed overwhelmingly in the Senate and the House, puts $800 million on the table for water, sewer, stormwater, flood control, and high hazard dam repair projects. That's $800 million in grant money. Senate Bill 1341, which also passed unanimously in the Senate and overwhelmingly in the House, puts $400 million on the table in grants and loans through the PennVest program. However, that particular $400 million will come to the electorate in the form of a referendum on November 4th. You heard Kelly talk about that. That's what's spurring the $1 million for clean water. It is something that all of us support, and we hope that the electorate of Pennsylvania recognizes the good job that the legislature and the governor have done identifying public infrastructure as a critical component of infrastructure in Pennsylvania, and that all of us get together to support clean water. Thank you very much.
John, thank you, and thank you to your association for your efforts in the last water referendum and the one coming up on November 4th. Next, batting cleanup, Michael Love, President of the Pennsylvania Energy Association, and the importance of gas DISC, a distribution system improvement charge, which piggybacks on to Pennsylvania's very successful water DISC. Michael.
Thank you, Kelly. It's very simple. Every state in the Union, every province in Canada faces infrastructure challenges. If we are going to be successful in having jobs and being competitive in the next century, we have to address infrastructure. We, in essence, are competing with all the other provinces and states in this continent. Whether we succeed will be dependent upon measures such as this fall, when we have our first chance to vote positively for infrastructure and addressing the water issues. I mean, it's not a genius to recognize that if we have water pipes made out of wood or we have gas pipes made out of cast iron, that we've totally ignored the technology of the future and the current, which is plastic. And clearly having wooden pipes doesn't meet the need of having greater fiber in our diet. And our diet should be redefined so that we are focusing on what? Jobs. To address infrastructure, as we learned from our history books back in Roosevelt's time, creates jobs. And we have an infrastructure that has long gone lacking. We have mandates from the federal governments in the gas area, the electric area, and the water area requiring upgrades of facilities. The question here in Pennsylvania is, are we going to meet those federal mandates, or are we going to be found in non-compliance? The other question is, are we going to take the time to train our workforce to get those additional union jobs, to get those additional engineers, to get those additional geologists hired in this state and lure them away from going elsewhere? That's a critical job that we face coming in the months and years ahead. Infrastructure is where it's at. Infrastructure will always be where it's at. We do not function as a society without infrastructure. And clearly, when you have the likes of Representatives Preston and Geist, who have historically been some of the strongest supporters of jobs in this state, we recognize that we are at a pivotal point, and we need to go forward, and we need to pass the infrastructure referendum this fall, and we need to pass a gas disc